Hello, APS Online students. This is Mr. Brysh, your counselor, and I'm here today to talk about financial planning. Planning for your life after high school. And we're here to answer this question on the right-hand side. What do I need to know to plan for my financial future? Of course, we're talking about our individual career and academic plan. We're going to do a task after this video that is all about doing a survey that's sort of to get you to think about what's going on after high school and how you would plan for that. So let's get to it. First, let's talk about the difference between in-state tuition and out-of-state tuition. Um, In-state, of course, means that you're living in the state that you're going to school. So if you were living in Colorado and you went to CU, then you would be paying in-state tuition to go to CU. If you were from California and you were going to CU, you might be paying out-of-state tuition, which, this is the important part, tuition can be 2 to 5 times more than in-state tuition. So it can cost a whole lot more money to go to an out-of-state school. Students from different states and countries can be classified as out-of-state. However, there are ways, even though you're not a resident of the state, to be classified for in-state tuition. So we'll talk about that in just a second. One of these ways is the Western Undergraduate Exchange, which really means that there are some states that say, you know what, if you come to our state in Arizona and you're from Colorado, then we'll still count you as, an in-state person for tuition purposes. It sometimes works for Hawaii, it works for the University of Wyoming, so you can see some of the examples of schools here. But it's kind of an opportunity to go to a different place, but you still get to pay in-state tuition, which is pretty awesome. You have a bunch of opportunities also while you're still in high school to sort of progress toward a degree or a certification of some kind and to save a lot of money. One of them is Pickens Technical College. There are 40 different programs at Pickens Technical College, and pretty much every program has a hands-on learning environment. So the dental assisting program has an actual dentist chair and looks like a dentist's office where you go in and work on, people and mannequins first and then people later on. At the cosmetology section, they actually have a salon. So, after you've done your classwork, you go and you cut people's hair and you style their nails and, you know what I mean? You do stuff like that. The veterinary clinic, that has an actual veterinary clinic. And at the auto body shop, I've had my car, I've had oil changes done on my car in the auto body shop. So, at Pickens, there's all kinds of programs that you might be interested in, from nursing to auto tech to mobile apps to a whole bunch of cool things. So if you're interested, you just have to let me know. Although it's important that you have a good GPA, at least the quarter that you're applying, the quarter maybe before you're applying, and it's important that you have good attendance. Those two things are required to be admitted into Pickens. You could also take college classes that APS pays for. So you could go to the Community College of Aurora, or maybe someday we'll teach a class or two here at APS Online. And you can get college credit while still getting high school credit. So if you take English 121 over at CCA, you can get college credit for that because that transfers to any school in the state. And you get also high school credit for English, a semester's worth. That's pretty cool. You do have to take an AccuPlacer test, or you have to have ACT scores in the 18s in order to get in there. So, there's some hoops you have to jump through to get in there. But if you can get in there, that's a great idea. Now, if you do either Pickens or college classes, and you do enough credits, you might be eligible for the Ascent program, which means that APS Online will hold your diploma after you graduate. You got all your 22 credits high school-wise, and will hold your diploma for a year so you can go back to CCA, or you can go back to Pickens and finish one of the programs there and get either your associate's degree if you are at CCA, or get your certificate if you're at Pickens in whatever the program is. So it's basically free college, which is pretty awesome. But for both of these, or all three of these, you need good grades, you need good attendance. So make sure that you are setting yourself up for that now. Okay, so let's talk about college costs. So we talked about saving money there, because especially if you're going out of state, you're going to want to save some money, hopefully. Um, but here are how college costs break down, right? There's tuition, which is really the cost of the classes, and there's a wide range of how much it can cost. There's relatively cheap colleges. This may not seem cheap to you, but this is relatively cheap for a college. You know, all the way up to $45,000 per year for a college, which I'm sure anybody would think is expensive. I hope. There's room and board. So if you go and live in the dorm rooms at a college, if you eat at the cafeteria, do things like that, it can cost some money there too. There might be fees associated with things for things like the library, for the gym. Most student centers have really nice athletic facilities there, where you can go work out, you can go swim, you can go lift weights, you can go play basketball or racquetball, stuff like that. So I went to UNC in Greeley, and they had just built a new one when I went there, and so with our fees, so that's what it pays for. And then you have to pay for books, obviously. So there's, it can be quite expensive for books too. You can see the numbers down here, right? Not cheap for books, but they're heavy, thick, kind of major textbooks, so it can cost a bit of money. So in order to help you compare, here are some, here the schools are down this side, the different kinds of schools, the degrees you could get at the schools, the cost for in-state tuition versus the cost of out-of-state tuition. So at a public career technical school like Pickens we were just talking about, you get certificates, right? You get your certificate in welding, or you get your certificate in cosmetology, right? And then it allows you to go apprentice yourself if you're a welder, or it allows you contacts. You can take your certificate of cosmetology to any beauty shop in Aurora, Denver, and be like, hey, I was trained at Pickens, and they're going to say, hey, that's awesome. We want to hire you. If you went to Pickens outside of APS Online, and you graduated and then went to Pickens, it's going to be $2,000 to $3,000 for you to go. You can go to community college, like Community College of Aurora, which we talked about, CCA, or junior colleges. They give 2-year degrees. Those are called associate degrees. And, they're pretty much the same for public technical colleges. They're very similar in terms of prices. You can see that. Except for if you go out of state, it's a little more expensive. And then if you go to public 4-year colleges or universities, the CUs, the CSUs, the University of Northern Colorado's, that's where I went, go Bears. All those ones give bachelor's degrees at a minimum. Some of them give masters for certain programs. Some of them give PhDs for certain programs. And they generally cost about $10,000 a year, roughly speaking, for in-state tuition. And then there's out-of-state, right? So we're getting expensive now. And then if you go to private 4-year colleges like Denver University, places like that, they also give the same kind of degrees that public do, but you can see the price difference. Now, they don't care if you're in-state or out-of-state. They have one price for you, but they can be pretty pricey. So, if you're not getting scholarships, if you're doing it all through loans, this could, be something you want to think about, the price of the schools that you're going to. And then there's proprietary colleges, which means for-profit colleges, which means you're paying them money and they're making money off of you going there. They give certificates all the way through bachelor's degrees. So they do the same thing that all of these schools do, except for they tend to cost a bit more. You can kind of see that they don't really care if you're in-state or out-of-state either. So these are like ITT Tech and places like that. University of Phoenix. One thing I wanted to say is it's not to say that there are certain colleges that are bad and not for you. You have to find the college that's right for you. But one thing you should be aware of is that for-profit schools that you see on TV, they a lot of times promise that they're going to get you done faster, which is not necessarily true. You need a certain amount of credits to have to have a diploma that means something, that's been accredited by an institution. So it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get done faster. It usually has higher tuition, which means more debt when you get done. And the credits usually do not transfer to community colleges or four-year universities. So the benefit of all the public schools, right, is that credits are transferring between schools for the most part. You have to take guaranteed transfer classes, but those are most of the classes you take. And then when you get down to the for-profit proprietary colleges, they don't run with the same system, so their classes don't necessarily transfer. So keep that in mind. All right, let's talk about financial aid, because you got to pay for all this stuff somehow, right? You can get scholarships, which you do not need to pay back, but you need to meet certain criteria. You need to have a certain GPA. You need to have written an essay. You need to have gotten a certain score on your ACT. You need to be a certain height. Believe it or not, there are scholarships for people who are tall. There are different kinds of scholarships all over the place. Most people get a whole bunch of little ones because most scholarships aren't full rides. They're not going to pay you like $40,000. Most scholarships aren't. They're going to give you like $1,000 or $2,000 here, that sort of thing. So you get a bunch together that help pay for your school. Grants are another thing that you do not need to pay back. So if you get a grant, it's kind of like a scholarship. It's pretty cool. Grants are given out a lot of times for certain areas of need. Like, if they really need nurses, there'll be grants out there to try and get people to go to nursing school so that they have more nurses in the field, that sort of thing. You can do work studies at your school, which are really cool because then what happens is say you're going to University of Colorado. Go Bears! University of Northern Colorado. Sorry, that's what I meant to say. If you go to University of Northern Colorado and you work in the library, let's say, they will work around your class schedule so that your job there works neatly around that. If you worked at somewhere else on campus, or they usually try and work with your schedule. But if you work off campus, like at the mall or at some business that's outside of the campus, then they may not work well with your school schedule. So it's nice for work study because they can be really flexible. And then, of course, there's loans. Almost all of the teachers here at APS Online went to college through loans, so it's something that you can do. It's not like teachers make, a ton of money getting right out of college, so you can, pay them back. What happens, though, is that you start paying back 6 months after you are done with school. For all of these, though, and really for all applications involved in college, so this is for you seniors to remember right now, you're going to have to fill out the FAFSA, the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. That's what it stands for. And it's something that every school makes you do, but it allows you the ability to apply for all kinds of grants and all kinds of scholarships and all kinds of loans. So you need it in order to pay for your college. So it's like a prerequisite. It's kind of a pain, though, so we're going to be doing some workshops in January, February, and March about with CCA about how to do the FAFSA, and they have people at CCA that will help walk you through doing it. It's a big, long tax form, so it's kind of a pain. All right, so I talked a little bit about the FAFSA here, but one thing I want to make sure that you understand is that you should never pay. The FAFSA is free. But there are a lot of sites out there, websites out there that pretend to be the FAFSA, but you have to pay for. So those are scams. Do not believe in that. It should be free. Okay, but everybody's going to be applying for the FAFSA and financial aid in January of your senior year. So seniors out there who are watching this, make sure that as soon as your parents are done with taxes, that you get some of those forms because you're going to need them for the FAFSA. So most people keep their taxes filed away somewhere, so you just got to make sure your parents have them. And then you and your parents are going to be filling it out together. So even if you don't think you can qualify for grants and stuff from the government, then you still should do it because it's required for all financial aid, work study programs included. And when you get your financial aid award letter, so say you apply to University of Northern Colorado, go Bears, and you get into University of Northern Colorado, go Bears. You will get an award letter from them. If you do FAFSA and fill out all the paperwork, that will That will include loans, any grants, any scholarships, the College Opportunity Fund. That's what the COF stands for. Any work-study programs you could do, all that sort of stuff. So it'll include all that stuff in it, and then you get to choose what you want to, how you want to pay. All right, so let's talk about scholarships. You should check Naviance for scholarship lists. The district is sort of updating them now. In the springtime is really when scholarships kind of take off. So make sure you do that. There's also a scholarship folder in Schoology for you, for the seniors. So make sure in your ICAP 12 you look for the scholarship folder because that's in there for you. You can contact me for lists, but that's where I'm going to point you to, is to the scholarship folder in Schoology. So you should always start with colleges that you plan to attend, and each college gives away lots of scholarships, for different programs within the school. So that's why you want to check out your college when you do that, and make sure that you're paying attention to the deadlines, because you can't be late on those things, otherwise you won't get any money. So we're going to require some planning ahead. Scholarships are a lot of work because there's lots of filling out things, but it pays off in the end. Because you keep applying and you keep applying and you keep applying, and you'll get as many scholarships as are available to you. Okay, another couple things about scholarships is that most award packages come directly from the schools. So especially if you go to a private school, even though it's really expensive, they give out a lot of scholarships and grants and that sort of stuff like that. Because they're so expensive, they want to make sure that they have some students there who, weren't born rich, right? So there's a whole bunch of grants from the United States, like the Pell Grants, for instance. So after you do your FAFSA, you might be eligible for a Pell Grant, depending on what the FAFSA says, the expected family contribution on the FAFSA says. So that's why it's so important to fill out the FAFSA. Scholarship websites are a great way to search for all different kinds of scholarships. So in that scholarship folder in ICAP 12, it's got a list of 4 or 5 really nice scholarship sites that you get onto, and they will start emailing you scholarships, which is the cool thing about that. You don't really have to go out and look for them. You just have to start filling out paperwork afterwards. And then, scholarships come in a couple of varieties. One is financial need. So, if your family really has financial need, then you're going to be available for a whole bunch of scholarships. If you do great things, that's what merit recognition is. You have accomplished some great things as a student. Your GPA is high, your ACT scores are great. Maybe you've done some community service. All those things are merit. And then there might be special talents or affiliation ones. So special talents could be, being good at sports, that sort of thing. It could also be, being good at a particular hobby that you might have. A lot of students out there in orchestra play instruments, so that could be something you can get a scholarship for. You could be affiliated with something too. So like the Boy Scouts give a scholarship, and the Girl Scouts and that sort of thing. So you could be affiliated with a group that gives scholarships as well. If you don't get all of your money that you need through scholarships, then you might be doing loans too. And there are a couple different kinds. So there are guaranteed student loans, sometimes called Stafford loans, and there's subsidized and unsubsidized kinds of loans there. Subsidized are the ones you want because the government will pay the interest while you're in school. So you don't pay anything until you're done, which is nice. If you get an unsubsidized loan, that means that the interest is kind of accruing while you're in school. So, it's not, it shouldn't prevent you from going to school necessarily, but, it's better to get subsidized than unsubsidized, obviously. And then you start repaying your loans 6 months after you're no longer enrolled in school. So if you drop out of school, then you have to pay 6 months afterwards. If you graduate school, you get 6 months to find a job that pays well that you can repay your loans with. There are plus loans, which your parents can get for you. And it's based off of parents' credit. And then repayment, they don't give the 6-month grace period for the repayment. It could be as soon as 60 days. So just so parents know that, if parents are watching out there. Then there's direct student loans, like Perkins loans. Those interest rates are a lot lower, which is good, because you don't have to pay as much back. And you pay 6 to 9 months after you're no longer in school. But all student loans have to be repaid. That's the important part there. But I did my schooling with student loans because I was stupid and lazy and didn't want to do scholarships, like I should have done. And, so I had to pay off my student loans. If I could have gotten scholarships probably if I would have worked for them, but, teenagers, what are you going to do? So there's lots of different deadlines for each financial application. So, they're generally in the spring from January to June. So that's why I kind of highlighted that. And to apply for financial aid, you need some of these following items. You need a Social Security number for yourself and parents usually. You need tax return information a lot of times. You have to have an idea of what colleges you want to go to because the financial aid will be connected to what school you go to. And then here's the website for the FAFSA, if you're watching this in the spring. You could always go print one out. Here's the website to go print one out. And then you have to send it back in by mail. Either way is totally fine. The one online is a lot easier because you can renew it every year. It's also easier. So. All right. You might be thinking about, if you are an undocumented student, what you do. One good thing that I would recommend would be to make sure that you are trying to get into CCA classes that APS Online pays for, right, or APS District pays for, because those are free and you don't need any sort of financial aid at all for that. And really, that just means that you're going to end up having to pay if you transfer, like, say from CCA to UNC or to Metro or someplace like that, then you'd have to pay the other 2 years, sort of the full price of tuition. So, but basically, once your application is complete in the FAFSA, you will receive what's called an EFC, an expected family contribution. And that basically says, well, that's what the government determines that your family can pay for your college. So whether or not that's a true number or not is kind of, based on the circumstances of your family, but that's what it's there for. And then once your application is received at the college, they're going to ask if your FAFSA was done, so you have to do both of those kind of, right around the same time. And so once they have those two things together, that's when they give you your award letter, your money. One thing to be aware of, though, you won't receive financial aid if you have a felony drug conviction or if you've had loans in the past and your loans are in default, like you haven't been paying them. Those are two things that prevent financial aid from occurring. So keep those in mind. A couple things you can do now. If you're watching this in spring, you can start on FAFSA, right? Anytime after January would be good. But this is what the FAFSA screen looks like. You would start here and you have to sign up for a login and password and all that stuff first, but that's what it looks like. And once you get in there, you're going to hit Apply Now after you've signed up for an account and everything. One thing you could do now is what's called the net price calculator. So you fill out a couple of questions, right? And then you hit continue, and what it gives you is what the federal government is probably going to say about how much money you can pay. So here's, at the end, it'll give you the estimated cost of attendance to whatever school you're interested in. It'll talk about all the different kinds of costs involved, and it will give you how much financial aid you can get, which is kind of cool. So if you want to plan a little bit ahead, especially if you're a junior or if you're a senior right now and you're thinking, this is the fall, I want to plan for the spring, you can definitely do that. But the importance of college, in terms of the money, is here. So I'll take a minute to let you look it over while I kind of talk here. We'll start in this category here, right? If you have some high school, this is generally speaking the average um, salary for you. If you have, if you've graduated high school, it goes up a bit, right? You see that? So now we're, I don't know, $30,000, right? If you do some college, like say you've gone to CCA while you're in high school, but you haven't graduated yet, look how much that increases your average earnings. You're more employable, your employers are going to notice that sort of thing. If you graduate with an associate's degree, even higher still, right? We're almost at 40,000 now. If you get a bachelor's degree, this is a 2-year degree, the associate's. The bachelor's degree is a 4-year degree. So if you get a bachelor's degree, now we're into territory where you're making a nice living, generally speaking. These are averages, right? So half will be above, half will be below. If you get a master's degree, which is usually a 6-year degree, you paid a little more than 60 grand. If you get a doctorate, 8 years or so. If you get a professional degree, which is like 8 or 9 years plus residency, so like if you're a doctor, they don't just let you go and operate as soon as you're out of school. They make you study for a while, and become a resident. If you're a lawyer, you have to work in a legal office for a while, that sort of thing. But look how much money you make. So generally speaking, the more education you get, the better off you are in terms of money, and the more intellectual work that you do, generally speaking, right? You work with your mind in these kinds of occupations for the most part. And so that's, having a good education is generally equals a comfortable life. So the question is, what will you do for your future? Everybody's different, and so, you want to make sure that you have a plan, whether you're going to go to technical school and get a certificate in whatever the careers you want, or whether you're going to go to Harvard and, become a law professor. You have to have a plan for how it's going to be accomplished, right? So now it's up to you. Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about financial planning, your task now is to do the financial planning survey. So you would log in to Family Connection, and remember there's a link right in your ICAP folder in counseling. So if you're a senior, it'll be ICAP 12. If you're a freshman, it'll be ICAP 9. Right below the video is a link. So you click on the link, and then you type in your username is going to be your student number, and your password is your birthday. 2 numbers, 2 numbers, 2 numbers. And once you get in, you end up looking at a screen like this. You go to My Planner. You go to Tasks Assigned to Me, the purple tab. And then you do the ICAP Grade 12 Financial Planning Survey, which is basically it's completed. I'm using a senior as an example here, which is basically a list of drop-down menus, right, about all the information that we just covered. So if you want to go back to the video and watch it again, that's fine, or pause it and then go look for the right answer, that sort of thing. That's totally great too. You can also take notes, and it's not like you're not going to need this stuff later. It's pretty important. So notes could be a good idea as well. All right, guys. Well, thanks for watching. I know this was kind of a long one, but it's important. Planning for your financial future is just as important as any other kind of planning for your future. So when you have questions, let me know. Remember that you can always find my go back to counseling page. You can always find my number or email address right in the bottom left-hand corner of the counseling page, right there. So you can get me anytime. Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll talk soon.